Hi folks, in this video we're going to be looking at our material. So I'm going to open up the one that is our original master material that's complete, and we're going to have a little look through this, and eventually in a few minutes we're going to start building our own. So this is the gigantic setup of nodes that eventually creates our world. So what we're going to be doing, if you ever get stuck over the videos, is we're literally kind of working from this end, and I'm going to slowly build it up to the right. So you'll see a sort of the trail over the next few videos. Just in case you ever get stuck, you should be able to zoom in around this one to figure out how things work. So if I zoom in on this area, this is perhaps the first thing or part of the material that we're going to build in a second. And what we can do is, if I just click on this node here and right click on it and choose Start Previewing, this is the first task that we're going to try to work on with our material. So what we're effectively doing with this part of the material is creating a bit of variety in the colour of our oceans. Now it's not a lot, admittedly. You could do a lot more by having more masks for this, but we're colorizing in this example deep and surface ocean. I'm just going to right click and choose Stop, and you'll see me do that quite a few times just to show off various parts of the material. So let's go back to the content browser, and I'm going to make in here a new folder, and this one I shall call material. So we've already got a completed material on there, and let's right click on a new material and call this Planet Master. So if you've never heard of master materials, the idea is that we can build them up with all the functionality that we need, and then we can relay that information to our child material, or instance material as they are more commonly called. So I'm just going to double click and open that up here. So what do we need to do first? Well, we need to look at our main mechanism for blending that we're going to be using lots in this set, and that is the linear interpolate node, or the lerp. And if I right click and search for linear, it will pop up here. So why use this? What's important about it? Well, what we can do is we can take two blends or two colors here, whatever they might be. They could be grayscale or they could be color, as per you saw in the other image. And we can blend them together via an alpha or mask. So that's what's really good. We can just interpolate, as per the name says, with an image. This is also used in other areas of UT work or Unreal work with vertex colors as well. So you can use vertex colors, anything really that's going to generate you a scalar input normally. You can also blend through vector 3s if you wish as well. So how do we set up our colors and other bits and pieces? You'll notice I've not got any textures for oceans. So what we can do for that is we can right click in here, and I'm going to type vector parameter and just click that in here, and I'm going to call this ocean, if I can spell. There we go, awesome. And I'm going to duplicate that and place this one underneath and call this a deep ocean. So if you've never seen a vector parameter before, the idea here is that if we parameterize anything, we can hopefully expose it through other elements of the engine, so we can talk to the material. So that's one of the great things about it. Vector parameters is really cool as well, because they allow us to pick colors. So I'm going to connect the top one to input A and the top one to input B, and there we go. Those two now are now connected. We've not got anything in the alpha, but we'll look at that in a second. At the moment it's just blending half and half, but as they're both black we don't see a lot. So I'm just going to click here on our black value, and we've got sRGB tint on. So I want to try and pick a colour for the ocean. Now, whilst you're picking your saturation, that's all well and good, but if you don't also move the value down this side, you'll see that you'll see it'll just remain black, and I see that frustrates quite a few people when they're trying to work with this for the first time. So that's pretty cool. Once you've picked a colour, you can right click on the box and choose copy, which is pretty cool, because then we can paste it into our box on our other parameter. And why I might want to do that? Well, it just helps me pick a colour for this just that bit easier if I've got one to base it off. So I'm just trying to make them a little bit distinct in terms of value and saturation, so they're quite different. There you go, that's pretty cool. So they are now in there nicely. I'm just going to connect the output of the lerp into the base colour, and that shows off that blend so far. So okay, that's fine. So how then do we create this alpha? Well, if we look at the one that we've done already, we've got a texture here, a texture sample, and that's just the landscape mask. And then we've got is a bit of modification, and I'm going to explain that as we look at building that in the other viewport. So I'm going to go back now to my content browser, and I'm going to select my land mask. There we go. And then go back to my material and hold T, click. That will now add in a texture sample. So, as this is the mask for the land, what I want to do is to invert this, and that will then give me a mask for the water, or thereabouts anyway. So, if I'm to drag out from this, what I want for my node here is something called a 1 minus, and that is effectively inverting this. Again, you can get a nice preview of this if you click on that, and you'll see the difference roughly between these. Now, it can help to play with the contrast quite a bit here, and that's what the next node will help you with. If we drag out and type power, this will apply a nice bit of mathematical operation to it to get a bit more range into the image. And then lastly, what we do is we apply a clamp. If I just expand that one, you won't see a lot at the moment, and I'll explain in just a second. I'm just going to wire it into the alpha first. There we go. We can start to see our blend working. So, what's actually happening here? I think you can see it's pretty obvious between our original invert and what the power is doing. However, why clamp it? Well, what it's doing is it's giving us a minimum and maximum value that this will output. So realistically, when we're working with an alpha or any kind of blend, normally you want to do it between 0 being no effect and 1 being 100%. And if you tend to go above that range, then you're going to start blowing out your colours, and that's pretty bad. So we don't necessarily want to do that unless we want to create a glow or some weird colour blends or something like that, but for our case we don't. Now what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to create a variable to go into this exponent here. So what this allows us to do is take the powers exponent and alter that value. Now you can always do that by clicking on the node and coming in here and adding in a value, which is great. But if I drag out here and just type constant, there you go. What I could do now is I can click on these independently. So originally it was at 2, which gives us that effect. However, if I change this to something quite a bit higher, like say 15, now what happens is it's quite a distinct difference between the deep oceans and also the shallower ones. So if I now just literally click and click off that, you'll see effectively what we've done. There we go. So we've got a nice clean blend between all of those. I could turn on live nodes if I wanted this to be a bit smoother. So that's the end of this video. I've hopefully introduced you to the basics of vector parameters, a simple blend, and how to use masks invertly and to work a little bit with contrasts. So try replicating that. In the next video we're going to start by looking at some of the ground texture, and then eventually we'll move on to vegetation and some of the snow effects as well. Thanks.